Hello and welcome to Make Yourself Postpartum event. This is my pleasure to be moderating this panel with you amazing ladies. I was looking at your bios and I was looking at the title of this panel, which is feeding. And honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better combination of expertise because you all cover different areas when it comes to feeding after birth. So I'm very excited. Cannot wait to hear all your comments, all your feedbacks, all your tips and recommendations. Just give you just a quick background on myself. My name is Mastane Sharafi. I'm Senior Director of Scientific and Clinical Affairs at Ritual. I'm also a mom of two, 4-year-old boy and 8-month-old girl. So this topic kind of related to me too, because I'm in that period of feeding my daughter. Mm-hmm. And you see, will be moderating this panel from my daughter's nursery room. So yeah, I think before we go to the questions, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and give us some backgrounds on what you do. I'm sure our audience would love to hear about you and your recommendations and tips later on. So Erin, we can start from you.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. I'm Erin Ehrenberg. I'm an attorney. I'm a mom of 3. They're 8, 5, and 2. And I am the founder of Totem Women. We are a platform that helps modern mothers pursue wholeness. And our first product was a lactation cookie.
Amazing. Yeah, this is really good. Like we have like the first on the lactation, so that's perfect. And we can start with Corky.
Hi, I'm Corky Harvey, and I'm an RN with a master's degree in maternal newborn nursing, and I'm an internationally board certified lactation consultant. And I founded a place in Santa Monica and LA area over 35 years ago that supports families and breastfeeding. So we're called the Pump Station and Nursery. Mm-hmm. And so we are a new family breastfeeding, even if you're not breastfeeding, family support place. So I've been doing that for 1,000 years, it seems. I have 3 children, but they're grown. So I'm not in the place you are, Masana, but I was there. And I have 2 little grandsons. They live in Germany, however, so I haven't gotten to see them for a long time. So it's delightful to be here and share with any of you any questions that you might have about my field.
Thank you so much. Very interesting background. I cannot wait to hear more. Laura.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Modi. I am the CEO and co-founder of Bobby Baby. We make an organic European-style infant formula. We just got FDA approval, and we're going to be on the market in the next few weeks.
Amazing.
Also a mom of 3. One of those who arrived during the pandemic, our little pandemic baby. So we have a 4-year-old, and then my 2 sons who are 2 and 4 months old.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad that we have like people at the field of formula and the lactation. I think that would be a really great conversation that we're going to have today. That's amazing. And last but not least, Simone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Simone Toomer. I am a mom of 2. I have a 7-year-old daughter, a 2.5-year-old son, and I am also a birth and postpartum doula, a lactation counselor. I lead La Leche League meetings in New York. I'm in Brooklyn, so various breastfeeding support groups and Chocolate Milk Cafe, which is specifically a breastfeeding support group for Black moms, and we'll talk more about disparities amongst different communities later on. And I'm from Zaya Care, a free tech support company for expecting and new parents.
Amazing, amazing. So I think we should start and get as much information as we could get that from you guys, because this is the best time to get all the tips and recommendations. So I'm gonna talk about the topic first. As you see, we called it Feeding 101, from nutrition to supplementation. And we specifically use that feeding because we want it to be more inclusive, and it's not because there is just one way of feeding. There are like multiple ways, and we want to be inclusive of all of these ways of feeding. And let's start with the AAP recommendation. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months with continuation of breastfeeding for 1 year or longer as mutually desired by mother and infant. But again, we know that there is no one size fits all approaches to feeding your baby. Also, there are stigmas around feeding your baby. So I would love to hear your advice for women in a variety of situations, navigating what is the best for their family. Erin, we can start from you.
Yeah, so I think it's really important. A couple things come to mind here. First of all, I like to remove the idea of shame from this whole discussion. I think we as women and as mothers are way too hard on ourselves. We offer compassion to everybody else, and we are so unkind to ourselves. And I think especially when you're becoming a mother, you're really looking for signs that you're doing a good job. And breastfeeding can be a place where there's a metric, you know, especially if you're pumping, you're seeing how many ounces are coming out, and you start to judge yourself. And I really would love to take that shame away, to wave a magic wand around it. I also think that we live in a society, especially in the United States, where we do not bake in support for new mothers across the board. And breastfeeding and lactation support is absolutely an area that's so needed. And I see, you know, Corky and Simone, I'm so grateful for women who are offering that support. It's a massive revolution, a massive shift. And I think were there more support for women who are hoping to lactate and don't have some reason that that's not something that they choose or is not right for them or their infant, I wish they had more support, because so many times I hear women telling their stories and stopped breastfeeding, and it's for reasons that, you know, maybe the latch wasn't right. And if they had somebody really teaching them that it should be a wide open latch, or maybe there was a lip tie or a tongue tie, if they had only had that support, they may have felt so empowered in their journey. And there's so much beauty in that feeling of empowerment, where breastfeeding is kind of working out for mother and baby, and so much attachment, just feeling, you know, your bodies against one another. And that's the other thing too, for mothers who, for whatever reason, they choose not to breastfeed, or it's not working out, or it's not working for them or their infant. There are ways to have that closeness and that attachment and that attunement with skin to skin contact, and by staying close and connected with your baby. And again, that comes down, in my opinion, to support. If someone were to say to them, hey, it seems like this isn't working out, or you're not feeling well, or this is taking away from your mental health and wellness, let's support you with some other ways that you can have that attachment and that bonding that you're looking for. I think mothers would just feel so much better in their journeys.
This is the period of life that you really need support. Really? And you see the least support usually, because all the changes that happening, which is I think you mentioned a lot of good points. Would love to hear from other ladies. Corky, do you have any?
Well, I think that Erin just gave a massive sermon there that we could all play into, that we all believe in tremendous support. I mean, obviously, as lactation consultant, I am there to help empower women's path that way, but also we find so many women that that do struggle with different parts of that. And we always say to mothers, look, any milk is great, and if more is better, that still is not the issue. And we don't ever want your breastfeeding efforts to interfere with your ability to mother your child. And when that happens, something else has to give. So we're certainly there to help empower women and to teach women and to support women, because a lot of the things that happen to women are because they didn't have that support or knowledge. And so Simone, you made me get chills when you said chocolate milk and support for Black women. I mean, I happen to work in an area of fairly high socioeconomic, and the same support isn't there for all categories of women. Yeah. And that needs to change. So women are on their own by themselves in their houses. We have support groups, but amazingly, a lot of women don't hear about it or don't come. So we have always felt that the support for all women needed to be there. And you're right, it's not going to get better if we don't support financially and insurance-wise women. I mean, the ACA at least paid for pumps for women, and that has helped tremendously in my thought. It hurt us because we didn't sell pumps anymore, but that's not the point. We're there to support. So I agreed with everything Erin had said. And Laura, interestingly, you know, I'm a breastfeeding consultant, but women have been searching for a better quality formula. So they've been going to online and buying things out of Germany, Hip
Yeah.
and Hole, et cetera. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. Obviously, as a lactation consultant, I'm not going to sell formula because I can't. It's against, I would lose my IBCLC status. But we get asked oftentimes when we have a mother who has a low supply and she's working her butt off, literally, to get that supply up, but she has to use some supplement. We would like to be able to have a really healthy option for her. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have, I'm sure, lots more to say, but I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah. Laura, I would love to hear about your perspective.
Oh, you guys are all legends. I mean, truly, just hearing you speak to this. I mean, first I'll say, especially after having 3 kids in the last 4 years, the growth in education and support, and it does need to get bigger, and we do need to be offering it to everyone, is truly what has helped the breastfeeding rates go up in such an amazing way. I mean, even the difference between my first child to now, massive amounts of education. And if you don't get that education on how to latch, I mean, we didn't grow up learning how to do this. I don't know how to like maneuver my boob into a baby's mouth. You just don't know these things. So the education,
so true.
Just like, you know, I wasn't educated on how to be a mom, never mind how to like, you know, squash my boob into something. It just doesn't work that way.
It's a learned skill, Laura. It's a learned skill.
And then you learn, and it's eye-opening to realize with the right support, it can work, and it can work in a way that it's pleasurable as well. You enjoy it. You actually have that joy with your child and that connection in a way where when you don't get that education, you miss it. Mm-hmm. So my own personal experience going through this was, while the growth on one end of the spectrum and the amazingness we're doing for breastfeeding and growing breastfeeding rates, for those that do need to supplement, which is a large percentage of people, even if it's just a small amount of supplementation, you may supplement at some point in your first year. And the gap, the emotional gap between breastfeeding success and then having to supplement is massive. Yeah. So no matter what your feeding journey, you should feel good with your choices. And if you have to supplement, you should be proud of the product you pick up. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't feel like I'm doing second best in this moment. There's reasons you may have to supplement. And for whatever those personal reasons are, you should be okay with the choice that you made. And at the same time, the balance of making sure that we put out an option that people feel okay with, but it's part of their feeding goals. It's not trying to replace breastfeeding. Certainly the beauty and how dynamic and personalized breast milk is can never be replaced. But your supplementation really should be something you should be happy with. I think that the last thing I'll just note on this, which is comparing maybe European style as well to what I've noticed here in the US, is this concept of how we categorize people. We categorize moms as breastfeeding moms or formula feeding moms. I hear it a lot. And we're moms. We're all moms and we're all trying to feed our kids, but we do categorize a lot. And I think if we can provide options all across the spectrum that people feel good with, hopefully we can move away from categorization.
I loved your final note on categorization, because you totally see, and that's the guilty part that Erin was mentioning also, is coming from this categorization. And I think we have a larger spectrum, that guilty feeling and the sense of judgment on the other side. I think it's going to go away, which is really interesting. Simone, I cannot wait to hear your input on that.
Yeah, I think all the ladies hit many aspects on the nail. We know that postpartum support and breastfeeding success, not only initiation, but duration, really matters on support, right? It could be your best friend, your aunt, a support group. There are times where support and internationally board certified lactation consultant may need to be referred to because of weight concerns or medical issues. But sometimes support is just like, oh my gosh, you're doing a great job. Or look at that chubby baby. And sometimes those numbers in that bottle, or, you know, when pumping does mess with our mental health, and we have to then look at that. And we all wanting to be the best mom that we could be. We're all putting our efforts 100 1,000% into taking care of our babies, right? And how can we do that the best that we can and make sure our babies are fed? And I think just going back to that community is really, really important. Sometimes even for moms who know they don't want to breastfeed, I'm like, can we give a little bit of colostrum, right? Even if you don't want baby at breast, can we express a little bit of colostrum? Because we know that makes a difference too, you know? So I think we really, sometimes it's just taking it day by day. Our goal is like the next 24 hours I'm breastfeeding, you know, versus some people are like, yeah, 1 year. And goals are different for everybody, but we really want to make sure that everyone is thriving and healthy in the postpartum period and getting the support that they need.
And mothers, too, they may have a goal, and I encourage them to sort of see how it flows for them rather than have an absolute goal. They know what the American Academy says. We like to encourage moms to take it as far as they can, see how it goes for them, play heads up ball. But there certainly needs to be support for their intent and their endeavor. It isn't easy, and helping them know that. I had a mom, she did not know what normal intake was supposed to look like. So it was so much fun, and the other mothers were so valuable on the support. It was a Zoom, but she did not know. So she just needed that support. So that was just one example of that situation. They need to know normals.
And
I think
is different for everybody, right? Some women don't respond to a pump, but they could hand express ounces and ounces, right?
You also mentioned, Corky, something related to racial disparity. And I would love to talk about this because we see there is a racial disparity here. And I would love to know what challenges you think are there, and that why we see this disparity, and what are the tips and recommendations that you guys have to overcome this disparity, so we could make the disparity smaller, so the gap is smaller based on the race and ethnicity.
I guess that Simone is going to have that question. And Simone, I'm so excited to hear that, because with what's going on in the world today and trying to understand ourselves better and learn better from wherever we are, I'm just really excited to hear what you have to say.
Yes. So the big topic in the past couple of years have been Black infant mortality, Black maternal deaths, low breastfeeding rates around Black, Indigenous, Brown families. And unfortunately, we do know that research shows that Black and Brown families do breastfeed less. However, as a mom who breastfed 2 babies, and I'm still nursing my 2-year-old, and I lead support groups, it's like we are Black women that do breastfeed, actually, you know. And it's interesting because I do think there is a gap in that research when Black and Brown families are doing well. You know, who is really collecting this data? What are they really, you know, seeing? However, we also know that research shows that doctors are not necessarily so quick to give us the support that we need, because they assume we are going to stop breastfeeding anyway. Right? So there's already some predeceived notions around our breastfeeding journeys, right? And so what does it look like, once again, to going back to support and education, to pick providers that usually look like us and understand our journey, right? And also on the other side, postpartum, get support to close those gaps, right? There's unfortunately just like prejudices that impact our success, right? And it's unfortunate that it's coming from the higher up, and we are birthing in institutions that are, at the end of the day, sometimes not for us. And what can we do to change the narrative in our communities so we are actually supported in choosing providers that look like us and support us, and also are therefore impacting our success rates with breastfeeding?
I think you brought a good point on the support. And I was reading the research actually today on the racial disparity. I was looking at the CDC report. So they looked at like the national data, and the main racial ethnicity difference is at the initiation of the breastfeeding.
Yes.
So if that's the main difference, if they start, so different race and ethnicity group, if they start breastfeeding, in longer term, there's no difference based on race. They're very close, actually. The main difference is the initiation. And I think, as you mentioned, Simone, it's all about the support. And I like your tips. You already gave a tips on like, just have a little bit of the colostrum, help them initiate the breastfeeding. And then I think they're going to be way more successful in long term, which is, I think, could be a good,
I mean, I personally, right now, I work in a hospital setting. I've had a private practice with birth and lactation for the past like 7 years. So it's interesting to see newborns day 1, day 2 in hospitals versus, you know, a toddler support group that I might have led 2 or 3 years ago where it's extended nurses, right? And it's unfortunate sometimes the things that you see in the hospitals, there's just not enough time for that one-to-one care, right? Lactation consultants are really, really busy trying to get to about 30 something rooms, you know, sometimes.
I found, you know, running a platform for women that's focused on the woman after she's had a baby, and being a white woman, I found it really interesting going into Black Breastfeeding Month every year I do, because on one hand, I'm so glad you said what you said, Simone, in every way. But what I was going to say is, on one hand, we want to look at the figures and show that gap in support, because, you know, our society is not showing up for women yet well, let alone Black women. And so you want to really showcase that, but at the same time, show all the success stories. I don't think it serves Black women to see over and over, like, not successful, because there are so many success stories, and there's so many beautiful images and stories of Black women crushing it, like having these long journeys, and certainly being very attuned and attached mothers that we can learn so much from. And so I think it's a really tricky line when we talk about these numbers. I think it's super important to look at the numbers and to also showcase so many success stories. So it's not like this monolith, and we don't blame the woman, because the problem is with the system, and the problem is with lack of support, because women individually are really fantastic, and we need to be showcasing that more.
And I think also more and more women of color going into the lactation fields, as Simone is. And that, I see that when I'm on some of the lactation platforms, when you're getting education, you can see that there are many, many more coming into the field. And I think that's crucial. They have role models to work with and people to encourage them who know the background as well and the history. So I'm really excited to see that. Are you you're in New York, Simone?
I'm in Brooklyn, yes. I think also a part of a lot of things is normalizing. Corky had mentioned normalizing, but a part of me is kind of like, let's take it back to basics, right? Like, once upon a time we had, you know, our baby with us. And I think we do live in an era where we're unfortunately returning back to work sooner, you know, maybe a one-parent household. There's a lot of stressors, right? And I think it's important to, like, encourage parents and encourage new moms to, you know, just take it slow and take it easy, right? Have a staycation, because you are going to be sitting on that couch for a really long time feeding your baby, whether bottle or breast, right? Pick your favorite Netflix show, you know, get your thermos beside you, and really just, like, be in the presence and in that moment with your baby as much as possible, which I do think our mind kind of runs a mile a minute and the next thing. And we have to really encourage prenatally really what to expect from this 4th trimester, which the education helps. And of course, when you're in it, that brings a whole nother light to it. But we also are not real with one another about what that might look like as well.
So we've been doing virtual consultations, and the lack of support really scared us a lot. But we've seen women somehow be empowered. They're home, their partners are often with them, so they're together as this little family. And with the virtual consult and support, it's amazing how many of them we've been able, it's hard to show it. I mean, the dad has to hold, the partner has to hold the camera, and it's really difficult. That said, it's impressive how many of them have gotten through it and been sort of empowered in a different way through the virtual work. And I'm teaching the virtual classes. The first time I did it, I was scared to death that it was just going to be horrible, but we've gotten better at it. And moms are coming to those. I had a mom pop in yesterday, just said, those virtual support groups, that virtual class made all the difference for us. And so it is, and we can teach many more people.
Well, when the stay-at-home orders first came out, I kept thinking about postpartum and that cocoon. And Simone, I love what you're talking about, you know, when you just get on the couch and Netflix and chill. I've been so type A my whole life, and it exhausts me. I wish I could, like, extricate the type A and throw it out. But when I became a mom, one of the reasons I love being a mom more than I ever thought I would is that I was doing everything by doing nothing. Like sitting on the couch with our babies on my breast, relaxing was everything. Not put, you know, in a robe, letting it all hang out. And I loved it. And I wish there was more of a conversation around, this is the time to be. You know, we talk about being versus doing. And so, Corky, to your point, I think the stay-at-home orders allowed us to be. And so for moms, they weren't really pressured to, you know, hurry up and you have to be back in an office. That means you have to wear a certain, you know, have to look a certain way and wear a certain thing. They got to be for longer. And I think in a world where we had like a year-long maternity or, you know, really parental leave, and we were expected to take more time at home, I wonder if a lot of this pressure wouldn't go away and we would have just a really different journey with breastfeeding and nurturing.
I absolutely agree. My maternity leave was ending in April. I always think there was a silver lining for me because I was able to breastfeed for longer because I was home and I had like that relationship, which is unique for this specific time. But I think there's definitely silver lining for us who recently gave birth and we were able to spend more time with our babies at home. So yeah, would love to get so we talk about breast milk, and I see a saying that say they are what you eat, and I want to know of your feedback on that. What do you think about this statement? Anyone who wants to go first?
I personally think it's a funny statement because breast milk matters, regardless if you eat McDonald's every day or salad every day, right? Like your body is unique. Breast milk is a live food, and it is going to that connection between your baby and your body. Your body's going to do what it needs to do to keep your baby well nourished. So it's a funny statement, but I would hate for a woman to feel like, oh, my diet is not good enough, so let me not breastfeed my baby. You know, because we know that your milk is going to nourish your baby.
So it's, some of the things that we know now that that the breast milk changes depending on what you are exposed to and what you are eating, but it's all balanced out.
I mean, from a different perspective on formula, I mean, I said it earlier, breast milk is personal and dynamic in a way the formula never will be. There's going to be things you get in breast milk that we have to accept won't be. At the same time, formula is designed and modeled to make sure that you get the nutrients that you are expected to get. You still should look at the ingredients though. And I think, you know, when you look at formula companies and you look at all of the ingredients they can put into it, it does range. And in the same way that breast milk is not made equal from one mom to another, neither is formula. And you know, we should be holding ourselves accountable to knowing what's in it.
So one of the things that's always bothered me about formula is to see some of those ingredients like corn syrup. And so, you know, I'm curious about your formula.
No corn syrup, that's for sure. And, you know, it shouldn't be hard to not add these ingredients. I mean, you have entire countries who ban the use of these ingredients, but yet we still allow them here in the US. We need to evolve. And, you know, just because the industry for corn happens to be large, we can do better. It's ridiculous. So
my said we can do better when we know more. Better, know better, we can do better. You know, my daughter lives in Germany, so I've got to see birth and feeding from a different perspective. There's incredible support for new mothers there. You get a home visit 2 or 3 times by the midwife. They support you through, you get to take a leave for, and so does your partner. I mean, it's nuts how different it is.
Isn't it ridiculous? Like vendors to pack suitcases full of powdered milk to ship across seas. I mean, it's insane that we have to go that far to get quality we want here. And I mean, honestly, what you just said though completely goes back to it.
We live in one of the most developed countries, but we actually have one of the worst maternal health care systems, right, and outcomes. And that is so
Absolutely.
backward. When I speak to my colleagues in Canada or England, it's like a world of difference on how many visits they get, right? And when we talk about your newborn, you're at the pediatrician day 2, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, and then we have this gap of I gave birth in 6 weeks, where so much can happen, right? And someone could fall through those cracks physically, mentally, emotionally.
Lady, we did an Instagram live with a woman who lives in Sweden. I interviewed her, and it was hard for me not to just sit there with my mouth open the whole time, like forget my questions. Because I was like, okay, so tell me about after you have the baby. She's like, well, then we go to the hotel for a while, and then they match us with other moms in our neighborhood who have had babies who are at the same age.
Wow.
And then we have our, postpartum doula comes over, and it's all paid for by the government. I mean, you have to watch it. It was fascinating. It's also, again, it's parental leave. Both partners are there supporting one another. And also then the cultural expectations. It's not like, I think there's policy that companies have, and then there's also what actually happens on the ground and how are you perceived if you're a male and you take leave. And it's just worth a watch for any of you who geek out on this stuff, because that system, boy, if we were to incorporate a 30-second of what they do, we'd be so much better off.
Back in Europe, they refer to it more as medical.
Where are you from, Laura? Where are you from originally?
Ireland. You should enjoy it. And here, we're expected to let our bodies just bounce back. And that is the source of, backing up into why aren't we seeing breastfeeding rates higher than what they are? It starts with what we're able to offer. And yeah, we have a long, long road.
Yeah.
Well, what's beautiful is I see women like all of you and all, everybody that we're connected to, we're making that change. I mean, we are the whole change you want to see in the world. When you look at, I had the first notion of wanting to start what later became Totem in 2012 when we had our first. There was nothing. There was not a cultural conversation about the woman who's now a mother. There were some support structures, but there wasn't a conversation. There are now so many businesses built around the postpartum woman, and it's so encouraging to see that we're doing this for ourselves. I mean, it's disheartening that we have to be our own heroes over and over and over, but I'm really encouraged to see how we're linking arms and trying to make it better for other people, because we've experienced it firsthand and don't want other people to go through the same thing.
Yeah, we see more businesses, and one gap in my area that I see a lot is on the research side, which I was so excited with the 2020 dietary guidelines that they were planning to add infants and pregnancy and lactating women's dietary recommendations. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're finally gonna have like a specific recommendation. And then the committee review was out, and what I was seeing was insufficient evidence, limited evidence, no evidence. It's not like there hasn't been any much studies to give more information to answer some of the basic questions when it comes to lactation, for example. So I think it's a big gap when it comes to that one. And they were like multiple nutrients, for example, they were looking at that they just look at, for example, omega-3 fatty acid and folate and nothing more. They were not able to look at the rest of the research. And I think with more business and more demand, hopefully we're going to see more research. So when you're coming up with a formula or with a product for moms who are lactating or for the infants, we could have like better support and we could make it a stronger case. So like regarding that, I just wanted to talk to you guys about what do you think about like breast milk in general?
With me, kind of circling back to the whole back to work thing, I was having this beautiful breastfeeding journey. I have tiny boobs, and I was not the kind of girl that like grew up playing with baby dolls and babysitting. I wasn't thinking about like, I can't wait to have a baby. I was so happy to just be with my baby. And then I was working for this startup. It was a tech startup. We had gone, I was in a very senior role there. We had gone from 5 of us to 150 people. We had gone through a Series B. I had my CEO start to call me. I can still have visions of like rocking my rocking chair with our baby, getting calls from the CEO. I just wanted like 5 minutes. We have this candidate and I want you to look at it. And he wanted me to become the CRO of the company. And I take everything really seriously. And I felt like, wow, if I'm going to be the CRO, that's a huge job. And I want to do that well. And what I really wanted was to take a year and be with my baby. I wasn't with my baby anymore. I was super stressed out. I was locked in these meetings with the executive team for 6 hours. And when I would say, I just have to duck out to pump, it was like, well, just 5 more minutes. We want to finish this presentation. And so my shame really shifted in of like, I started to feel like it was not true for me that I could do it all. I could either be the mom I wanted to be, or I could be the executive I wanted to be. And I was really upset about that. That's the other factor. I wasn't eating regularly the way I was. I had to get home. Yeah. So I wanted a cookie that would actually taste good. And nothing on the market at that point, to be honest, tasted good. They tasted like sand or hockey pucks. And I was equally craving something nurturing. I kept having this vision of my great grandma like rocking me at her bosom. I needed somebody to hold me the way I was holding that baby. And I kept thinking like my grandma would give me a great cookie. And I was bringing to mind things like pistachios and really dark chocolate and pine nuts and almond butter and grass-fed butter. And I was giving it to friends and colleagues and neighbors. And it was like my go-to gift. And everyone was saying, oh, you've got to do this as a business. And I didn't right away because my mission was more to serve women as they become mothers in a more well-rounded way. And some of it's quite simple. Like we have resources on our website where we talk about just add oats in wherever you can, add brewer's yeast wherever you can, add flaxseed meal, add it to a smoothie, to the top of your oatmeal. If you are eating a bowl or a soup, you can add these things in. I'd love for you to buy them a cookie, but you don't have to.
You should run for office, Erin. You are amazing the way you speak. And
I just get very fired up about this. If there were an office for new moms, I'm running.
Oh, just delightful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a well-balanced balance of a diet, I think is really critical, especially during the time that we don't take care of ourselves that much and we don't have all the food groups that we need to take. I'm a dietitian, so I always think about, okay, do we have all the food groups? Is this covered? I know I have higher needs for example, protein. I have higher calorie needs. Where are those extra calories are coming from? Is this healthy fat? Is this lean protein? Like thinking about like our diet, I think is really important during this specific time. I just hope like future with the kind of talks that we have right now and increasing the awareness, so we have like more demand, so we could have like more work on the higher levels on the government. For example, I was looking at Healthy People 2020 goals, and I was looking at, okay, what are the goals related to women postpartum? There's not much. Like we need to have like specific goals, especially I think for the healthy people, because they try to get to that goal and there are going to be resources assigned to that goal. We need to have goals related to women postpartum to help, especially like we have like with the breastfeeding. I think there are some efforts on that. But I personally would love to see a lot of research and evidence so we could make the best products for mom that they deserve, and we could follow a well-balanced diet.
Honest to God, I love what you guys are doing at Ritual, because I think it's really hard for moms to take a minute for themselves and nourish themselves. Honestly, whether you invited me to this or not, the one thing I do every morning is have a big glass of water with my Ritual vitamins and my probiotic, because I feel like even if I don't do the best job all day, it's the thing that I know I'm going to do every morning. And it's nice to hear you speak and your passion for nutrients and science, and to know that you're part of that team. It's really encouraging.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we care. So the good thing about like before Ritual, I wasn't taking any vitamins myself. I'm a dietitian. I believe in food first philosophy. Anything you can get through food. You should get it through food. But I look at like dietary patterns. I know what's going on in the diet, and there are some key nutrients we're not getting enough of from our diet, and that's why like the ritual totally makes sense for a dietitian like me. This only include the nutrients that we are not getting enough of, not all the unnecessary nutrients. So I think it's really good, and hopefully I think with the more science, with the talks like this, we could have like more funding associated with the women at different life cycles, so we could have like more studies and more evidence, and more talk related to new things coming.
For all women, right. I think Simone said that she does the same thing I do, which is to stay on that vitamin, or the ritual. So if there's something missing in your particular diet, even though you think you make it really well, maybe you're missing something.
Thank you so much. I think we're close to the closing time. I really, really appreciate the talk we had, and cannot thank you enough, I think, for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, your passion for this specific area of life that I'm in that area, and I think all of you have been. And I think I want to talk to our audience as well. I would like to know what are your takeaways from this panel discussion? Were there any surprises or turns or insights that you noticed from this discussion? And what are you going to do with this information? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in, and bye everyone.
Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.